So today I'm going to show you how to mask up a uPVC door to spray in situ. First of all, I'm going to remove the door furniture. And again, I'm going to remove the handle. When I take that off, I'm going to make sure that everything stays in position, pop that back together, and then screw that in so nothing can get lost. And then I can remove the knocker and the spy hole. And again, putting the bits together so that nothing gets lost. We're going to start with the glass and then we'll go on to masking all around the edges. I want to make sure that around the edges of the glass the silicone has been cut out, and then I'm able to go on with my tape keeping the tape as flat as I can, getting that first piece on, and then I'm easily able to keep that in line as I push that down, and these should overlap in the middle. I'll come back to these and cut those off once I've done all of the glass. Making sure that I'm pushing into these edges so that when I cut that, it stays nice and sharp. Whilst I've got this tape out, as I've taken the furniture off already, you'll notice there's a few holes around here. We need to make sure that none of our overspray will blow through. So on the backs of the doors, I'm going to take my tape and just seal over all of those. And there we go. Now that's done, I'm going to blade off these bits. Just being really careful. And then tucking those loose bits back in. There we go. Now what we need to do is ensure that we're able to spray the whole face of the door and the frame itself without getting overspray down the edges of the door, back and front, or any overspray through the gap there in the hinge. To do that, I'm going to tape up these edges to start with. Just tucking that in behind on the uPVC. If this was a composite door, then this would have a plate on the end, and we're actually probably going to end up having to mask slightly on the face of the door. But on these, we have to spray this little edge. We want this to be as flat as we can and as pushed down nice and tightly as possible. Same on this back edge. And again, I'm keeping the whole roll on, laying that as flat as I can, keeping that all nice and straight as I come down there, and then just tuck in that little overlap around the bottom. We also now need to mask up the rubber gaskets on the edge of the frame here. That will then stop any paint going on that and sticking to the door. And then we also need to protect and join these two pieces together so that we're not getting overspray going through the hole where the hinges are there. So again, I'm going to get that masking tape and really carefully just push that onto that facing edge of the gasket there. And if I get that first bit right, the rest of this should flow quite easily into place. A little bit of fluff. And you can see here, I'm not overlapping it onto there. I'm actually tucking that right into that corner, making sure that's secure. And then I'm going to tuck that back in behind, away from. What I don't want here is for that to be tight across here and bridge across, because when we get to the point where we close the door up, that can create a bit of tension on here, and that could possibly then pull the tape off the face of that gasket there. So we want to make sure this is all nice and tucked in, and then not able to have that tension pull that off. I'm going to do that round all four sides here. And there we go. Now that's done, we need to mask around the outside. This is what I call picture framing. For that, we are going to need a green tape. This is for brick and render, so rough surfaces, and this is much more sticky. So I want my line around here to be nice and neat, into the top corner there. And again, a nice long piece here with my thumb there, just keeping that level to the edge of the frame, and that gives me a nice straight line as I come down without overlapping onto the frame. Again, I'm going to blade off that little bit in the bottom corner. This tape, I want to make sure that I am pressing down to the surface just to ensure that it doesn't come off, and I want to make sure that if there is a bit of a rebate here, that I am folding that all the way around and sticking that to the face of the wall there as well. Again, I'll blade off that bottom piece shortly. I'm going to do the same here. You can see on this one, this is a little bit of an iffy corner there. So I've got two options. One of them is to try to mask to that line and then tuck that in. The other would be to tape directly over that and then blade down it. Personally, I don't like cutting down the edge of tape. I like to keep that line of the tape to give us a perfectly straight line at the end. So I'm just bringing that down and tucking that into there. And I'm able to manipulate this by pulling it around top and bottom and just putting that in with my fingers, pushing that where that needs to go in order to line up. I then want to make sure again that I'm pushing that into the face here so that that's firmly stuck all round. Just tidy up the bottom piece. Tuck that bit out of the way. And then on this side, on here we obviously have some decking. Usually it wouldn't be on decking, it's most likely going to be on a brick step or something like that. So again, I would need to tape around the edge of that. If that is off the floor, then you can slide your Corex underneath, or your X board, or even your masking paper. For the sake of this, it's very tight to the decking, so I'm actually just going to mask a line across the front to be able to protect that. And there we go. Again, on the top here, I want to make sure that I'm tucking the tape in and we don't have a lot of bunching up in there. We want to keep these corners as sharp as we can, but I don't want any miss at the top. So again, pulling that out to a reasonable length, getting that stuck before I start to pull it further along. And that enables me to manipulate and move that where I need to. And again, tucking that up onto the face there. Now I've done that, I can get my masking paper and go around the outside of that, and I'm going to secure that down with the green tape. I'm going to keep that close by. So we don't need to overlap too far or try and get a line. We've already got our line there, so the idea of this is just to be able to protect further out. So we can actually use our cheaper masking tape on the masker itself, because it's never the tape that we're using to gain that line. I'm coming long at the bottom because I'm able to manipulate that round, and then that is going to protect this bit of floor and give me an easier piece to do across afterwards. I'm then going to use the green tape again to secure this into position. Same on the other side, allowing a bit extra on the bottom again. And again, I'm able to manipulate that in the bottom to suit the shape that I need. And again, green tape to secure this in place. We're going left-handed with this because it's quite difficult to try and do it upside down. Tape is only on one side. They don't do them the other way around, unfortunately. I want to make sure here that I'm actually going wider. So most people end up masking about here and end up with a big gap here, which obviously isn't protected, and they tend to do the same both sides. So I'm actually going to make sure I've got excess, and then I'm able to stick that to the face of here. And then again, I can manipulate that. Where I need that to go, and then I'll grab my green tape and stick that into position. There we go. Just securing these corners to make sure that's all safe. Now, before I do the bottom piece, I am going to do the rest of the masking first, because otherwise I'm going to be treading on this and then that's going to get torn and I'm going to have to do it again anyway. So we might as well go straight for it and do it properly. This is the good bit. So here I'm going to do an arm's width on my masking paper, and I'm going to tear it. This piece needs to have the tape sticky side facing downwards, and it needs to be opposite from me. This is going to go over the top of the door, and this needs to be about an inch, half an inch or so overlapping round the back edge of the door, so the hinge side. And we want to make sure that we're pulling this nice and tight, and that the tape is further back than the face of the door. So if you can see the tape there, there is a chance that that can drop down and stick to the face of the door. So we want to bring that further back, pull that tight, and then secure that in position. We then want to pull this back up, ensure that this is nice and square on this corner. And as we pull this down, again, making sure that the tape isn't overlapping here where it could stick to the face, and then tuck that in and secure that down. Now we have a nice square top. We want to do exactly the same at the bottom, arm's width. This time sticky side up. Again, the tape edge on the other end from me. Same thing here, half an inch or so, overlapping around here, pulling it tight, making sure the tape's further back, and then we can pull that up nice and square as well. Make sure you go underneath and fully secure that to the bottom of the door. This is the start for our, what I call the hood technique. I now need another piece that is long enough to seal that edge. This goes on the outside, and again, just making sure that tape is a bit further back. And now I need to secure these bits together, and again, making sure that I'm keeping this as square as I possibly can. Otherwise, I'm going to end up with bunching here, which we don't want, because that will be a problem later on. So to secure that, this is a little bit fiddly. You need to grip the paper, the top one, with a couple of fingers, pull it tight, get that into position, pull that along. Then you're able to square this piece up. Then you're able to square this piece up, and then seal that. And we can see that's not too baggy, so that will be all right for us when we pull that tight. And then we need to do the same on the bottom here. Again, this time we want to hold the front piece. So a couple of fingers there just to hold the paper. And we're not worried about sticking this directly to this one here. We want to make sure this is nice and straight along here again. Get that into position, pull that square, and there we go. This piece here, I've gone too long. We could actually tuck that back behind, and that is nice and secure. I'm going to do the same on the backs, just to make sure that nothing can blow through. So we can see we've got the overlap here, and again, pulling it tight, keeping the door steady. And here we have it, nothing can actually escape through there at all. The only place it could go is into here, which we're actually going to seal up in a moment. There we go. So now this piece is done, if you step outside, you'll see that when I pull this into position, we're actually able to secure this to the frame where we've already masked here, all the way up and around. The only thing that we haven't got covered is this gap here where the hinge is. So we can see all the way through there, so overspray will obviously go through. So we need to now fully seal that up with our wider tape. Now, on this type of door, it's really important to make sure that you add a strip of tape here and a strip of tape here. This will ensure that when this closes up, that no overspray actually goes through inside the house or onto the internals of that frame. Now what we need to do is overlap here, and we're going long at the top and long at the bottom. We're going to do the same on the frame. And then we're going to work our way out to seal the two up. Again, going long on this one. And then we'll just fill in any gaps. There we go. go. So now that is fully sealed, I can pop this over the seal, pull that into me, and as this closes up, if you look down this gap, you can see that that is fully sealed there. We've got a tiny little gap at the top, but we'll deal with that at the end. If we were going to spray this door and do the door only, we would be able to do our tape round to here and our paper out from the edge of the frame. And the same here, we wouldn't need to mask around the outside. We'd still do the same technique, but you'll see when this comes in to the frame here, at the top, this would overlap and join up, and we just have to fill in this gap. But as we're doing the frame and the door, we need to blade off those edges. Before I do that, I'm just going to secure this bit in place, and always do this from around where the handle is. Get that nice and secure there. Again, you can see that's nice and tight, and I'm going to work my way down. Again, just trying to keep it tight, square and flush. Now we want to, once we've got to the bottom, we want to work from this side and square this out, because we end up with a crease. With that crease, we want that to fold into this corner. If it was this side, then it's going to bunch up too much in there where it's already quite tight, and then we're not going to be able to secure that in place safely. We want to do the same at the top, so we're going to work our way up. Again, keeping that nice and tight. And then again from this side, pulling that crease into that corner there. Now I can get my knife and just blade top and bottom, anywhere inside here. Like so. And then I can secure that along there, making sure you go right into the corner and along the back edge here into place. And there we go. If you look under there, there is a very tiny gap in there which will go through into the house. What we're now going to do is ball up our tape, tuck that behind that bit of paper into the bottom there and pop that out. We now have access to spray all of that, and then we want to do the same at the top. Again, keeping this side as tight as possible when having that crease in the corner. And again, balling that up. And tucking that in behind that flap there. All that's left for us to do now is to finish up the bottom with the hand masker, which I have left inside the building that we are masking up, which always happens. Luckily, there's another entrance. Here we go. And then again securing that down. Like so. And there you can see the door is fully masked. Have a look at a close-up and you'll see that we're able to spray all of that as we need to without getting any overspray inside. The only other thing I would suggest is to pop a door wedge underneath the door, pushing the door open, and that will stop it when your customer opens their back door to let the dog out from doing this and having the paper stick to the front of the door just as you've sprayed it, which normally happens. So there we go. There's my tip for masking up front doors in situ.